Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast, where we shine a light on powerful stories, compelling authors, and the words that move us. Today's episode features James Doyle Brandt, author of One Man's Life Touched by Jesus, The Spiritual Growth of One Ordinary Man. In this deeply personal and faith-filled memoir, James walks us through a lifetime of spiritual transformation, beginning with a strong Christian foundation, followed by periods of drifting and ultimately a powerful reconnection with God. From his early years and time in the Marine Corps to business ownership and family life, James shares how faith shaped his journey and how prayer and trusting God continue to guide his path today. Stay with us as we explore this heartfelt journey of growth, redemption, and divine purpose. So, James, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm feeling great. I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, it's going to be fun. I know it. Your book is amazing. So, the way that it chronicles a lifelong spiritual journey, I think that's the point. It's a lifelong thing from when you were very young, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you describe for us the moment, or maybe series of moments, that made you kind of fully realize the critical importance of faith in your life? It sounds like things started pretty early.
Yes. And a couple of things. There was a distance between what happened and when I realized how critical it was to my spiritual life. The first thing that I mentioned in the book was I was 6 years old, and I was staying at my grandparents' house with my sister, and we used to visit up there 2 weeks every summer. And we asked my grandparents to let us sleep out in their travel trailer. They lived out in the woods, up in a place called Hayfort, California, way up in the mountains.
Oh, okay.
So they let us, because their travel trailer was right beside the house, and we went out there and stayed in there. But then when I went to sleep that night, I had this image of Jesus coming, and I don't know. I had gone to a Sunday school class a few days earlier, and then we had a church thing afterwards. So I didn't know if it had to do with that or what, but I was just completely shocked. And it was a hard time going back to sleep. And then when I talked to my grandfather about it the next morning, he said, oh, there was a cow that got away and it bumped up against the trailer. And he said that probably caused me to have this kind of a dream. Well, that's fine. But then several years later, when I went to a regular Sunday school class down at the home where I was living in Paradise then, and in the class, it showed Jesus coming at the end times, and he was up in the air and his feet weren't touching the ground. And it was exactly like the image that I had earlier, and it just struck me. It didn't have to do with a cow bumping up against the trailer. That wouldn't cause me to get that kind of an image, So anyway, that was the first thing that, I was 6 years old when it happened, but I was probably 8 or 9 before I realized.
Well, no, exactly. But that's it. That's early. I mean, the thing that amazes me about that story is, I say story. I'm not saying it's a story,
Yeah.
but the thing that amazes me about that is that in your book, you mentioned that this happened, and your vision is on a beach, but you'd never seen a beach before.
I'd never seen a beach before. I grew up in Northern California, and this is in the early 50s,
Right.
1950s, and you didn't just travel everywhere back then. And there was no beach anywhere near where we lived. And I don't know how in the world I knew that was a beach and all those people out. That was another thing that I've never been able to understand how I did that. And we didn't have TV yet. So it wasn't like I saw it on a TV show or something.
No. Wow.
So I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer that one, but it was something that stuck in my mind my whole life.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And then, so how did that sort of change the way that faith happened to you, basically, and your family?
Well, it made me feel way stronger about it. When I talked to my father, he brought up a point that he was an engineer for the state of California, and he got transferred a lot. So we moved from one little town to another one inside California. Right. And we went to different churches. And he taught me that it isn't important what church you go to. It's your personal relationship with Jesus. And that the church is the way you go and you learn more and you meet other people and so forth. But that's not the critical thing. The critical thing. So he said it isn't really that important that you like the church a lot, that you go to. He was just trying to say, we move and we got to go to it. We usually went to a Baptist church back then, but sometimes it was a different one, if that little town didn't have, whatever they could do. So that stuck with me my whole life, was that the church, it's my personal relationship that's important. The church is a place that facilitates it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the place you go to celebrate your faith, isn't it? Rather than it being faith.
And meet other people with similar faith, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same.
Right. So that's interesting. So you grew up in a household that shared Presbyterian and Baptist faith.
Right.
So
my mother and my father, they were different.
Amazing.
Baptist is what we generally went to, but like I said, we went to lots of different Protestant churches. So. Yeah. Because if those little towns, they only had a couple of churches in them. You had to go with whatever they had.
Yeah, sure. So tell us, what's the difference then between Presbyterian and Baptist? Is it simple to explain or not?
Well, I didn't know as much about the Presbyterian because that was my grandparents' church that I only went to a couple of weeks every summer, when I was little. And I really, it was a lot more stricter and had more rules. I noticed that about it, but I was too young to know the leadership of the church or how they, at that time when I was growing up. But the Baptist church was a great big church in Redding, California, that we went to, and it had a separate church for children.
Oh, right.
On the same campus. So it was tailored. So I understood it a lot more when I was a little kid, because it was tailored for younger people.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense, doesn't it, really, to try and do that, I guess. I think we see that in churches nowadays being more sort of, understanding of children in churches and rather than trying to keep them quiet all the time, allowing them to be,
right.
allowing them to be children.
A lot of them now in the middle of the sermon, the church service, they have a little 10-minute children's thing where they bring the children up front, and several churches I've gone to do that now.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Which is good, I think. So your book chronicles your lifelong journey, spiritual journey, I think. And you mentioned that during your middle years in the book, your church attendance and your Christian priorities, they kind of, just slipped away, I guess.
They really did.
Incredible, isn't it? So why did that happen? And what drew you back?
I think I got too concerned with going to college and what was going to happen after that. And the Vietnam War came out, and I was worried about that and if I wouldn't be able to finish college and that sort of thing. So that was part of what was going on. But I just wasn't the same touch as when I lived with my family. When I was on my own, I was more concerned about paying the rent and getting things done.
Yeah.
Until I got in the Marine Corps, and then with the Vietnam War and everything turned around. Where I saw people that were just worried about their children living. They weren't worried. It's a whole different thing, and it just brought all these things I was taught when I was growing up inside of me. It really, really, really got me to focus again on things that are more important.
Right.
That's what I was saying in my book. I hope I can help people do that sooner than I did. I lost quite a few years,
And it sounds like you miss them. That's interesting though. So you talk about your time in the Marine Corps. Did you volunteer? Were you drafted, or what happened there?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I was getting ready to leave I went to a junior college one year, and I got a football scholarship, and I was getting ready to go play football, but I didn't take enough units the semester before that. And so I was going to get drafted. And I was number 46 on the draft list.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I was going to go.
Yeah.
And the Navy and the Army didn't allow you to play sports because they had the meetings you had to go to during the hours that you'd be at football practice or something like that. So you couldn't do that. So the only service that would allow that was the Marine Corps, because with the Marine Corps you did 2 6-week summers, but they didn't affect you during the school year. You see, so it didn't. But my father hated the Marine Corps. He was in the Army during World War II in Korea.
Oh, okay.
And so I called him about it. And he said, "No, don't worry about it. Go in the Marine Corps. They can allow you to finish college and get your degree." And so I did, and it worked out.
Okay. Wow. That's incredible. So during your time in the Marine Corps and the Marines, how did that, you mentioned, you just touched on it a bit, I think. How did that strengthen or challenge your spiritual beliefs? Because did you actually serve? Serve, I mean, were you, did you have to go to Vietnam is basically my question.
I was in Vietnam. And then the thing was, when I met the people, they didn't care about the Chinese or the Americans or anything. They just wanted their kids to be able to eat.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was I didn't understand. I was 22 years old, and I didn't know world events and things like that. And I just trusted the U.S. government. I thought, that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And as I was there, I was a helicopter pilot.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so at least I didn't kill anybody or. I was trying to save people.
Yeah.
I mean, it just worked out for me that way. But that's what I did there. And when the helicopters, you're near the people themselves. The helicopter pads are closer by, so I was able to develop relationships with some of the people there. And like I say, they were so afraid about their kids just being able to eat or be able. They could care less about politics or which government was controlling or anything like that.
No.
So I started losing faith in our position on the war because I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my job. I still needed to save people by flying the helicopters, and I did that.
And that's a good way to think of that, isn't it? Because it still allows you, I guess, to be a Christian because you're saving people. You don't have that, I guess, that worry about what soldiers are supposed to do, kind of thing. At least you weren't killing people, as you put it. It can be tricky, but I'm very jealous of you being a helicopter pilot, I've got to say. Not in combat, don't get me wrong, but
right. Just in general, yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so that really kind of made you think that people just want to get on with their lives. They don't care about the politics, and people are just drawn into these conflicts. They just live for the moment, don't they? This is what you're saying. They just want to feed their families. So after that, then, in your business or professional life, what did you do, by the way, after you left the Marine Corps?
Well, that was an interesting thing, too, because I really liked the Marine Corps, the relationship that I had with the people. And I worked with IBM a lot. And IBM was real close to the Marine Corps back then. And so I learned a lot about computers, and because I wanted to get away from trying to anything to do with killing people. And so I got into the technology. And then that's what led me to business later, was my relationship with IBM. And I actually wanted to stay in the Marine Corps. I was going to make a career out of it. And I applied and I was accepted. But then I had this dream or image one night, and you got to leave, and I couldn't figure out, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I left the Marine Corps, and I started a business within a month afterwards, and I got things going, and then it led to me going to Security Pacific Bank, and a lot of really good things happened, but I didn't know that at the time. It just hit me real hard that, no, this isn't what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And these things, I didn't put them. That's why I'm saying I hope people can, when things like this happen, hope they realize that this is from God. I didn't. I just had this strong image to get out and and I did it, but it wasn't until several months later that I realized, hey, wait a minute, this is the answer from God. I prayed and tried to make sure that it was okay to make the Marine Corps a career and if I could stay out of killing people and all that. But anyway, I hope you understand that. I didn't understand it till after I was completely out. But I felt taken care of. I always did.
Well, it's funny that's not the first time, is it, though, James? Because you've had, if going back to your early life again, you had that time when your family had to uproot from paradise where you were living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was terrible. Yeah. And I had my friend's family agreed to let me live with them and stay in paradise. And I did not want to go to Los Angeles. When you're in paradise, you hear all negative things about Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is, at least back when I lived there. And then I was walking down that street the day before my parents were leaving. And I just had this image and it just struck me that, no, you've got to go. And I knew that I couldn't play football. How can you start your senior year in high school playing football? You can't. There's people who've been on the team. So I went down I told my parents I want to go with them. And I left the next day. And then when we went down there, I didn't go out for sports. I worked, my mother was a waitress at a restaurant. And she got me a job as a dishwasher.
Right.
And so I figured I'd earn money that way to go to college since it was too late to do sports. Then two things happened. My football coach at Paradise called the coach down in Los Angeles.
Right.
That was one thing that happened. Another thing is I had a dream. And the dream was, this image kept hitting me, play for the team. And my whole time I played football in Paradise, I was trying to get a scholarship to Stanford. And I did everything I could to make myself look good in front of the other people. That was my whole objective. And this dream said play for the team. It was the opposite of that. And so my coach called the coach there, and the coach there in Los Angeles called me into his office. And even though they'd already started the season, he said, your coach wants you to play here. So I went in to meet him, and and the new coach, the coach of Southern California, asked me to come out for the team. And even though they'd already played during the summer and so for some reason, because of the dream the night before and all this, I went ahead and agreed to it. And I called my mother and had her resign for me at the restaurant. And I went to practice that afternoon. And I met a couple of the players on the team that are still lifelong friends to this day. And it just worked out. And I ended up playing the next game. And I thought that was shocking. I didn't think I'd had a chance in the world, and then I ended up getting a scholarship from there and everything worked out fine. But it said play for the team. And I played to try to make everybody else look good. That's what I tried to do at the practices and everything, and just a completely different approach. And it worked for me anyway.
Yeah. So it worked out at high school and then worked out because you got the scholarship as well.
Yeah, I sure did. And then,
Wow. You must have been good, is all I could say. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that was really, really nice. And so again, the Christian faith is what pulled all that together.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so let's move fast forward a bit on that, and let's go to your current marriage and how has that played a role in your spiritual development?
Oh, that's incredible! It's a huge role. Yeah. What happened is I was in a business. I started with a couple of other people, and we had software developers that were in the Philippines, and I would go to the Philippines 2 or 3 times a year, for a few weeks at a time. And I met my current wife there. She supported the financial. She did a lot of stuff for the company, but office type work. So I met her, and then I ended up asking her out one time, and we went to lunch, and then I just had this feeling that she was the right person. Now, I had been divorced for like 30 years or 20 some years, so I wasn't looking for anybody or anything. And so it was completely different. She's the opposite of me. She's a Seventh-day Adventist, and they're very particular about going to their own church. And, they're just the opposite of the way I was raised, which worked out for us because it wasn't important to me which Christian church I went to. It was, the way my father brought me up. So I ended up going, we were together for 3 or 4 years before we got married. I mean, we were seeing each other every time I came to the Philippines, and I met her family and everything. And then when we finally got married, that was kind of a funny story too, because I don't have a birth certificate. My mother divorced my father when I was a year old. Okay. And then she remarried a couple years later. And that's a long story. But the judge in the divorce destroyed my birth certificate. He didn't think I should ever know who my real father was.
Oh, well.
Now, this is back in the early 1950s, and things were a lot different. There were no electronic records of anything or anything like that. So I never had a birth certificate. So then we had troubles getting her visa to come to the US because of that, because I didn't have a birth certificate. And so I had worked on Barack Obama's campaign. And so I tried to call one of his assistants, and the assistant transferred me over to him. And I told him the problem, and he got her the visa within a couple of days.
No way.
Usually it takes months,
Yeah.
And so she came over, and Charity, my wife, asked the company, what in the world happened? And they said that the president of the United States said, if he can fight in Vietnam, he can have a fiance from the Philippines. And so if he can fight in Vietnam without a birth certificate, then he can have a fiance without one. And so I was very grateful. I don't know him, and I don't want to mislead you. I just helped him in his campaign. I was just a worker. I introduced him at 2 different places, but that was it. I was shocked that he would even remember who in the world I was. But I'm grateful to him for what he did.
Gosh, yeah, that's amazing. Well, that shows you, doesn't it? You just don't know what's around the corner or
That's
anything.
right. You can't. Yeah.
And that seems to be something that's quite, I guess, prevalent in your life, really, and your experience is that you've had these roadblocks that have happened, and then you've called them visions in your book, and then you've had other things like this happen, which really kind of are helpful, right? So, do you think that's a result of your spirituality then? Is it because you're open to things, or?
I think so, because when I started praying about it, like I pray 3 times a day, but the prayers, they're about half an hour long, and a lot of them are identical each time, but I just changed other things. And the reason I do that, God knows everything ahead of time anyway. It isn't for his benefit, it's for mine. So I'm reviewing all these things each time, and reassuring myself. But anyway, I forget what your question I was responding to, but what were you asking me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's about the spirituality.
Yeah.
And whether do you think that affects all the things that have happened to you, like your visions, or the help that you received from Barack Obama, or the coaches, all of these things.
I really do. And a couple of times I really questioned that during my life. And the answer that I kept getting is that everybody gets this kind of help. And a lot of them are just like me. They don't respond to it, or they don't accept it, or they don't realize that's what it is. Like I keep thinking clear back to that first vision when I was 6 years old. I didn't know that was, first I was too young probably to figure that out anyway, but it was there. And then some of the other visions that I had, I didn't recognize them immediately. It wasn't until a period of time later, and I thought back on them, that I realized that's what I was being told.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there as well, that people don't necessarily recognize what's happening. And, well, obviously you have, or you do, maybe
Uh-huh.
slightly later, not necessarily immediately, because it's not like a
Yeah.
tap on your shoulder, is it, or anything like that. But
No.
yeah, but you do describe actual experiences that reveal
Yeah,
it's of
and
believing in God.
like when I didn't want to get out of the Marine Corps, and then it just hit me that I had to get out, so I did, and that cost me $15,000 because if I'd gotten out of the Marine Corps before I committed to stay in, I would
Mm.
have gotten a $15,000 bonus. Because as a pilot, you stay in 6 years instead of it's a long story, but anyway, that actually cost me a lot of money, and I didn't have a job or anything, and yet it led to when I went to Security Pacific National Bank, and that was a great time, 4 years that I wouldn't trade for anything. And
Yeah.
who would have known, right? That could happen. But I didn't know that when I made the decision. It
No.
wasn't for quite a bit of while later.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Right. So if you look at your wife and her family,
Uh-huh.
what sort of spiritual impact have they made on your life that you wouldn't have expected?
Yeah, it was a big one because the biggest thing that happened to me was when we went to the Philippines to visit them, they were just like my grandparents. It was incredible. Their house that they lived in, and her sister and brother lived a couple miles from their house, but they would have dinners together, the whole family, and all that regularly. And it just reminded me when I was a little kid growing up, when I was at my stepfather's house, after I was a couple years old, where I stayed, and it just brought back all these memories, even though they were a different church. My stepfather was a Baptist, but they were, yeah, but that didn't matter. It was the whole experience was, and the eating together and the discussions and all of that it brought back so many memories.
So that gave you, I guess, kind of some grounding, something solid
Yes,
to sort of sit there. So, okay, so how would you define spiritual growth then, based on your life story? And what does it look like on a daily basis now? You mentioned that you pray 3 times a day.
yes, yeah, three formal times. I pray lots of times during the day, but
Yeah.
I have three regular long, well, I say long, half an hour, dreams, but yeah, I do. And it's led me I'm trying to get out of my business and spend full time. This book is the start of it, but I'm creating separate individual books for individual people that I know that are not Christians. And I'm working with them and writing a book about their life story. And even if they don't end up being a Christian, I'm still writing the book. And yeah, working with them. And I'm creating an organization, and I want to help people whether they're Christian or not. But I want them to know that it comes from a Christian organization.
So
You
that's
know,
interesting.
if that
So is
makes
that what
sense.
you're doing? That's what you hope to be doing now in retirement, I guess. I say retirement. It's not going to be retiring, is it?
Yeah, right.
But so you're trying to help others, and I think you've mentioned something like find what you have. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
if they could find it sooner than I did.
right. Well, this is really nice though, to spend time trying to help other people to actually benefit in the way that you have, but earlier. Right. That makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's the most important first step that you'd recommend that someone just beginning to seek a deeper relationship with God takes? Well, what would you think?
They just have an open mind to remember how I was saying that some of the things that happened to me, I'm positive now they were spiritual, but I wasn't at the time. Things happened to me. I saw images or had a dream at night or things like that. And I didn't recognize them as being Christian at first. It wasn't until a delay took place. And I think if people were taught to watch for those things and to, if they realize how helping other people and living, if you look at all the values from the Bible and how much it really helps everybody benefits from it.
I suppose with you as well, what starting off young and having strong faith and then drifting away from your faith.
Yes.
How would you encourage people or what wisdom would you offer them for, the people who've drifted away and who think
Uh,
that they should come back, but they just haven't done?
yeah, I think they have to take a deeper look at what they're doing and what's happening to them, and realize what they could do for themselves if they would go back
Mm.
and have the Christian faith. And I am not a minister or preacher. I don't try to get people to do certain things, or I'm not specific like that. But if you care about other people and have Christian values, you'll see the difference in your life. I wonder why people try to build all this wealth and everything, and then they just die and leave it anyway. I don't understand. You can only do so much, but you can help other people.
No, exactly. So is this why you've written the book now? Or was there some other sense of sort of urgency behind it?
I've written a book to set up my life that I want to spend full-time effort in this effort, and the book was just the start of it. But I'd like to base everything on the book. So I'm honest with people what I did in my life, and so they don't make some of the same mistakes.
Mm. And so, what sort of message would you want to part to your readers then, or hope that they carry along with them? Just one of those things that you keep remembering.
Yeah, I just want people to have faith in God and not expect to get answered right away, or to get the answer that you wanted to get.
Mm.
When I wanted to stay in the Marine Corps, that wasn't the answer I got. The answer I got was to get out, and that wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah, right.
But so don't people have to have patience and not expect. I've heard so many people say, "Well, I prayed and I did all this and nothing happened." Well, you have to give it some time, and it's not your plan; it's God's plan.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a vending machine, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
A prayer isn't a dollar bill that you're sliding into the machine. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, not at
I
all.
get that. So here, I have to ask you this question, which is quite
Okay.
interesting, I think, right?
Okay.
So the book's titled One Man's Life Touched by Jesus. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So hypothetically, obviously, if Jesus were sitting across from you today, what would you want to say to him? What would you want to share? What questions would you want to ask?
I would want to, well, I think of lots of questions, but I would let him know that I wish I hadn't waited as long as I did, that I wish I responded quicker, that he gave me plenty of opportunities and signals and signs that I did not respond to. And I wish I had, especially in the middle part of my life. That's what I regret. And that's what I'd like to get other people to avoid, if I could influence them somehow.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your book is going to do that. And James, we're out of time now. Unfortunately, it's a shame. We could be talking for ages about this.
Yeah.
Your life is so fascinating, going from small town to the Marine Corps, to serving, and then having your own business as well, and now moving into the spiritual side of things. But listen, it's been great talking to you. So thank you for joining us on this episode.
Oh, my pleasure. This was terrific.
Yeah, great. That's all right. Well, we hope that you, our listeners, were inspired by the powerful testimony and spiritual reflections of James Doyle Brandt. So to learn more about James and his journey, visit his official website, actually, at onemansLifetouchedbyjesus.com. And don't forget, you can grab your own copy of One Man's Life Touched by Jesus today on Amazon. So until next time, keep reading, keep believing, and keep shining your light. James, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Uh-huh.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.